Live. Everywhere. On netrootsradio.com. David Waldman. Kagro. In the morning. Now, here's David Waldman.
Hey, good morning, everybody. How you doing? It is Thursday, August 13th, 2026. Time to get going again. Thursday the 13th, the very scary and horrible Friday. Thursday. Okay. I'm screwing with our music already. But okay, it is Thursday the 13th. We escape the superstitious bad luck day. Save that for tomorrow. And I don't know. I guess next time. Well, when's the next Friday the 13th? I don't know. Solar eclipse yesterday, which none of us experienced here, I don't think. I think we had literally 1% coverage of the sun, so you definitely can't stare straight at it. You're not supposed to do it even at 100%. So, all right. All the fun was in Europe, I understand. So, isn't that always the case? They get lucky with everything. All right, well, extremely high gas prices and socialism, so watch out for that. Okay, it's an even trade, I think, when it comes to the celestial events, I suppose. All right, lots to catch up on today. Things large and small. It is Thursday. That makes it the day after Wednesday. Wednesday's the day when we find out what happened on Tuesday. Thursday is the day we find out what it means to have found out what we found out on Wednesday, all because of what happened on Tuesday. And, of course, the 6 months prior to Tuesday. So, long time coming, and results are in, and we're finding out why things happened, including not finding out ahead of time what things were going to happen, according to the polls. So, lots going on. No particular order for me, but Greg has thought this through. He's here. The fanfare is ready. I'm just waiting to push the button. Now I'm just hovering over the button. No real reason at all here. Okay, well, just to drag things out longer than the fanfare itself. Greg Dworkin. All right. Good morning, Greg. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you.
It's
weird how that works. Things happen over the weekend. Monday we try to summarize it. Tuesday's primary day, although we really had the last of the big primaries. Wednesday we go over the results, and then Thursday we talk about, well, why did that happen? How did that happen?
What an interesting cycle. All right.
So that's today. So Thursday's the interesting show of the day.
Good. Well, it's the best of the shows we'll be doing.
It's the best of the Thursday shows, right? So
no doubt. Okay.
I want to concentrate on Wisconsin because that was really the big primary.
Wisconsin. That's me.
Connecticut.
I'm rubbing
People
my temples.
Have things to say about it, usually wrong. Josh Krashauer over at Jewish Insider. One of my Twitter friends, very conservative guy, and tries to put everything in left-right terms and tried to describe Luke Bronin, who beat John Larson, as a lefty, and yet another example. But that's nonsense. He's basically a moderate. Larson's a progressive moderate. I mean, they both have the same politics. It was just a generational change, and that's all there was to it.
That's allowed.
And the other interesting thing that Connecticut people brought up, Rosa DeLauro's even older. Is she at risk? No. Rosa DeLauro's not only extraordinarily active and visible.
She's acting, yes.
But, and has purple hair.
Right,
but
that's the visibility part.
Should the Democrats take the House, as everybody expects they will, she will be chair of, and I use the word advisedly, the powerful House Appropriations Committee.
Yes.
And you may know this. You know a lot about Congress.
Not anymore.
You used to be there. You still do. And there's only a couple of committees in the Congress, Senate and House, which automatically have the word powerful put before them.
That's true.
Like the powerful Senate Banking Committee with Phil Gramm.
Sure, yes.
And the powerful House Appropriations Committee with Rosa DeLauro. Yeah. You're not going to vote out, and this is going to be the overall meta theme for today, pragmatic, practical politics on the part of Democrats. You are not going to vote out the powerful House Appropriations Committee chair of the powerful House Appropriations Committee. It's just not going to happen. Rosa DeLauro's job is safe.
Yeah. Although, yeah, every once in a while, people get in their heads when they were going to do it anyway. They get in their heads that, oh well, the new person we elect takes that job. Connecticut always has the job of chairing the appropriations committee. No, it doesn't. It doesn't work that way. But I have
get
definitely
to be a minor
seen
player, and you could be a backbencher like John Larson.
Yeah.
For 28 years and not be able to cite a single thing he's ever done.
Yeah, I'm sure along the way he got some subcommittee chairman.
He's a reliable vote, but, and that's important.
And
it's especially, he's not a bad guy, and a reliable vote is important when you are like, I don't know what it is, 228, 212, or 226, whatever the numbers are. It's that close. You need a reliable vote. You don't need a Jared Golden. But what's he done? I don't know. You're out.
Yeah, I guess. Basically, I guess there's that. And yeah, I mean, it's a different situation for everybody. But if you're visible and people can point to your activity on the Hill, and I know that's funny because we're always singing the praises of the workhorse, not show horse, but there's a little bit of a show involved in that job too.
Yeah. Well, Jahana Hayes, my congressperson, is a workhorse and not a show horse.
You can do it,
but she's also been there a lot less time, so the burden of proving what you've done isn't quite the same with her as it is with somebody like John Larson, who's been there 28 years, and you can't even name a single thing that he's ever done. Which is why he lost.
Okay, well that won't hold up next to it might work with other challengers who just say, yesterday I've never done anything political either. I'm just jumping in versus somebody I've been actually at this game and I've done some things locally and people know me and I'd like to take a shot at this. I think I have some ideas.
Well, that's okay.
Well, okay.
But again, we've talked about this and we're going to talk about it a lot between now and November. You cannot win in the Democratic Party, and I don't think in the country, by advocating for the status quo, because people do not like the status quo.
Yeah, I guess.
So you need to bring something new to the table.
What's the other
if you don't have something new or something to defend why you, like the powerful House Appropriations Committee, then
he could,
it's not going to work.
I guess he could win if a challenger gets in and says, I don't know what I'm going to do. I want the status quo too. All right, that sounds pretty dumb and feels like it's impossible. Why would you just disrupt your life in order to ask for more of the same? But I guess if you do that, you'll lose.
Right.
Don't do
anyway,
that.
So again,
do that.
Candidates matter and campaigns matter.
Okay.
And over in Wisconsin, which is what we want to talk about.
Right, that's where we were going.
Francesca Hong turned out to be a very energetic and good run-up to the primary candidate, but also, in the end, a under pressure, not ready for primetime candidate. And both of those came out, and basically that's why she lost. And some really interesting anecdotes around here. I got 3 videos to play about David Crowley, the guy that did win, which I think emphasize certain points that I want to make about candidates in general. But I was telling David before the show, I was watching a video of a reporter, and unfortunately so much flies by, I can't find it now. But there were about, 6 or 7 women of a certain age, white women, older, 70s, sitting around and a table, and the reporter standing walked over to them and said, so, would you be willing to talk to me about who you voted for? And of the 7 or 8 women who were there, all of the same age, one of them voted for Crowley. None of them voted for Hong.
But
the others voted for the other people running. And the reporter said, what's going on here? And the Crowley person said, I always like Crowley. And the other people say, I was going to vote for Francesca. I mean, I'm sort of sympathetic to a lot of her positions. But in that last week, I was watching her Thanksgiving. She wants to cancel Thanksgiving. I don't know. I don't know if somebody like that could win. That's the key line. I don't know if somebody like that could win. Democrats are pragmatic. Who can win? And the thing about the primary voters this year is they're looking at the establishment after Joe Biden and saying, we don't trust you to tell us who could win. You have no idea. You have no clue. You tried to sell us Joe Biden. That ain't happening again. We'll make up our own mind about who we think can win. And in my mind, in my collective minds,
yours. Theirs.
They don't think Francesca Hong can win, so they're not voting for her. And that's what happened. Now, in terms of a candidate who does play well, on television, has things to say, seems to have it together, whose campaign seemed to have it together, and also was backed by the very popular Tony Evers. We have David Crowley, who nobody knows because, like, who is he and why was he even in the mix? So that's why I want to play some of these videos. I played Francesca Hong for you back in the day, so she wasn't a wild-eyed radical. She just wasn't ready. David Crowley, this is part of his victory speech.
Yes. By the way, he wants to cancel Arbor Day. I'm just...
yeah.
Maybe. Tu B'Shvat. He's very much...
Yeah. Out with it.
Okay. All right. We're ready. I'm ready with the first one.
Aaron Rupar has this piece from C-SPAN, David Crowley at his victory speech.
And I especially want to thank Representative Francesca Hong.
Okay.
Her campaign reminded people across Wisconsin that there are no long shots when it comes to believing in a better future and fighting to expand opportunities to every family. That kind of passion, it strengthens our democracy. And
you
I look
can turn it off.
All
I mean, that's the point I wanted to make.
So
he gets out there, and the first thing he says is, I want to congratulate my opponent. I'd love to have your votes. I'm not dunking on her. I'm not dumping on her. I'm not taking a victory lap. I'm not being arrogant. I love what she did and what she had to teach us. Come on board. And then goes on to say in that video, the real opponent has always been Tom Tiffany, who was an election denier.
Yes, but we don't deny that he's the opponent.
We don't deny he's opponent. We're going to deny him a win.
Yeah.
And that's really basically all about. So the graciousness and the unity that we saw in Michigan with Haley Stevens, we see in Wisconsin. Francesca Hong was at the unity lunch. She pledges to work for him. You know, it's you still scratch your head at Jasmine Crockett. I'm sorry, I have no idea what the hell she's doing in Texas.
Different situation, I guess, but
well, everybody else in the country is like rallying around the candidate, and she's still complaining that I don't think he can win. I don't know what I'm going to do. No.
Right.
No.
Yeah. Also, I don't know
the way Crowley does it. That's the way you do it. Now, second video.
All right.
Also, David Crowley.
Yeah, another polo shirt. Likes the polo shirts, he does.
Yeah.
Okay, well, me too.
I'm trying to figure out who the establishment is, right? I think that when we talk about the establishment, I don't know who that is. I'm a kid that grew up in 53206 zip code. My parents was drug addicts and suffered from mental health. I worked extremely hard to be where I am today. And so when people try to call me the establishment, I look at that as a slur, particularly as an African-American candidate. And so I have never ran for office to protect the establishment. I've always been here to protect the people. That's my foundation. That's what I'm going to continue to do as a county executive and what I'm going to do as the governor of Wisconsin.
Well, all right. And he needs to be mic'd better. That's my advice for the general election.
Right. But the points he's making, I think, are quite lucent.
My head is all turned around back. Yeah. Okay.
You can't make this into the establishment beat Francesca Hong and the insurgents. Why are you calling me the establishment? I'm a poor kid who grew up in a poor Milwaukee neighborhood. I'm now the Milwaukee County executive. I worked to get to where I am. What the hell are you doing calling me the establishment? That is a slur.
I don't know. Yeah, all right. I mean, it is these days. There are worse, but yeah. Well, a good point, well made, and then ruined by lousy audio from whoever collected this.
Yeah, but the point is you're not going to get him with a gotcha question.
No.
I mean, this is a candidate who is ready for prime time.
All right. I mean, I need more examples. Have you got more examples?
Well, I got one other, and I think it's important too. But this one is interesting to me because of the media angle. See, this is a guy interviewing Crowley, asks him about Hassan Piker, and gets sort of a wishy-washy answer, but presses him and comes up with some really good follow-up questions, which is what our current media apparently has lost the will or ability to do.
On Hassan Piker, they have questions. Okay, sure.
So go ahead with this.
All right. Well, this one appears...
It's a little longer, but I want to play the whole thing.
I bet the audio will be better. This one is from a local ABC affiliate, and they've sat down, they've set up lights and everything, so my guess is the sound is better.
Campaigned with, she raised money with Hassan Piker, the controversial streamer. Would you ever consider doing the same between now and November to win over that base of the Democratic vote?
Look, I think that we have to reach voters where they are, and wherever we have to do that. But I have my ways of doing that. I don't want to lend credibility to to platforms, if you will, that I believe further divides us as a community, further divides Democrats, or further divides this country. But I do know that we have to focus on bringing everybody under this tent. And so I'm always willing to have those tough conversations. But we also have to utilize not just myself, but there are many community members, there are many voters, there are many supporters that we can empower to bring people up to be a part of this big tent we call the Democratic Party.
When you're talking about dividing, are you talking about Hassan?
I'm talking about anybody who focuses on, divisive language.
So you are leaving the door open or not to campaigning with him?
With Hassan?
Yeah.
No, I'm not. I don't plan on campaigning with Hassan, if that's what you're asking me. No.
All right, there's your answer.
Yeah.
I guess so.
Press him until you get the answer. But that's a good answer.
Okay. Yeah, well, where is Hassan Piker
yes or no?
from?
No.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that's not ambiguous.
Yeah. Thanks. I guess, yeah. I'm not planning on it either. I don't...
Well, you're not running.
Yeah, right. Oh, I knew I had something on my list.
Right, and your opponent was running around with it, and Hassan Piker was running around with Abdul El-Sayed in a neighboring state, in a nearby state.
Running around.
And, not me. I'm sorry. I'm not doing that.
All right. Well, my problem would be, well, first of all, if you said Hassan Piker is here, it doesn't matter who you brought me, I would be like, that's Hassan Piker, I guess, because I don't know. And, all I know is his name, and that people are going to ask you, what about Hassan Piker?
Wait, that's not Hassan Piker. That's one of those older ladies from that table that was talking about that. I don't think that's Hassan Piker. Yeah.
I don't know.
I am Spartacus. No, I am Spartacus.
I know, and I assume it will be very, very, very easy to find out what he looks like. It just hasn't happened for me yet, but, I don't need to know. Unless he comes to campaign with me.
Right.
All right. Well,
and again, I'll mention a little factoid. I mentioned it the other day, but Michael Cohen brings it into relief. In 2018, there was a contested primary for the Democratic gubernatorial nomination in Wisconsin. 538,000 people voted. 538. Yesterday, 787,000 Democrats voted. That's a 43% increase.
Wow.
I think Democratic voters are motivated to vote this cycle, and they were pretty motivated in 2018.
Mm-hmm. True.
So, Wisconsin did just fine. And it's just so funny watching what happened with the polls, which we'll get to.
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes things move slowly, and then really fast.
Yes.
And the media narrative about how Hong was inevitable and what that means for Democrats around the country with Wisconsin, Republicans were already cutting ads about Democrats want to cancel Thanksgiving. And now they don't have that narrative. It's just been snatched away from them, and they're looking around, blinking, saying, what the hell happened? I was ready for it, and now we got to face this guy who's actually pretty good. I'm not sure. He's going to talk about issues.
Yeah, I guess.
Tom Tiffany wants to talk about, budget issues in Milwaukee, which this guy was responsible for as county executive. The funny thing is, the budget comes from the state, and Tom Tiffany was part of the Scott Walker Republican trifecta that tried to screw Democrats everywhere.
Oh, yeah.
And so issues with Milwaukee's budget actually come from Tom Tiffany's era, when he was responsible.
It's a lot of explaining.
One of the responsible people. So, look, the voters there in Milwaukee, Democratic stronghold, black voters, they're not going to fall for what Tiffany's selling.
Good. And I certainly hope not. All right. And they're not going to hear what Hassan Piker is saying, because he's not going to be campaigning with David Crowley.
Yeah. Anyway, so I just, again, wanted to introduce David Crowley and present what happens when you have a reasonable campaigner. Abdul El-Sayed is an excellent campaigner. Whatever you think of his policies and politics, he's a very, very good candidate in regard to being out there and able to handle questions. And it looks like Crowley will too. So, in some senses, the Senate race is more important, certainly for this year. But Crowley's important in terms of what happens with Democratic presidential politics 2 years after that.
Yes. All right.
So don't forget the future. Don't sacrifice it for today. This is from Puck, one of my favorite reporters, Peter Hamby.
Oh.
One of the reasons I like Peter Hamby is that I saw his work when he took some he was working for the networks, and then he took time off, did a sabbatical for a couple of years, and wrote some academic papers about the media, and then this back reporting. I mean, the guy works at his job, And
well,
used to be the line that we had. You meet some guy in a bar. What do you do? Well, I hang out. Oh yeah? Well, do you teach or do research?
Okay.
Well, neither. I just hang out. Peter Hamby teaches and does research, but he also reports. So, very skilled. The Hong farewell. The long farewell. The Hong farewell.
All right.
For a moment, Francesca Hong looked inevitable, a Pyrrhic victory for the DSA and the left's long march to power. Really? Instead, Wisconsin's gubernatorial primary, I love that word, gubernatorial, was a much-needed reminder that candidate quality still matters and that the voters who decide elections are older, less online than social media would suggest. Again, those ladies.
Sure. Yeah.
We seniors vote. We unks and aunties vote.
True. Okay. Fair enough.
So there were two big questions flying around the political world yesterday, after Democratic Socialist and woke poster Francesca Hong blew a seemingly invincible lead in the Wisconsin governor's race. How did the polls get so wrong? They had her with a 20-point lead. And how did Hong fumble the ball on the 1-yard line?
Okay. How?
This is not an establishment victory, said Mandela Barnes. It's an insurgent flop. It's not entirely accurate. Establishment Democrats ultimately arrived with the cavalry to help Milwaukee County Executive David Crowley. He bristles at the idea of being called establishment, but Tony Evers is establishment, and he's the governor, and he's the one that pushed him over the line. Crowley at one point this summer had dropped out of the race, jumped back in with the support of popular Governor Tony Evers after Hong's socialist momentum took off. Certain people have to have the word popular stuck in front of them, just like certain people have to have the word powerful committee stuck in front of them.
Right. Troubled rockers.
Right. Crowley's win, powered by a late surge of money and endorsements, is one of the great comebacks in modern political memory. But it is true that Hong flopped in spectacular fashion. During the final 2 weeks, Hong and many of her DSA supporters seemed high in their own supply. Assuming that victory was in hand just a week before Election Day, Hong invited Ilhan Omar and Hassan Piker to a campaign event in Milwaukee. Now, they say you can't win in swing states, Piker told the mostly white audience in Milwaukee.
Well, a small audience.
Well, I say we are going to prove them wrong. We're going to run up the numbers for Francesca Hong. Crowley's the real deal.
Well, does he lose his show
He is of Milwaukee. He's from Milwaukee. Going to Milwaukee and putting together a group of white young lefties.
Unless it's Laverne and Shirley. In which case,
Milwaukee, of course, does have a socialist streak in its history. Any fan of the Alice Cooper scene in Wayne's World knows that. But this was a statewide race, and Hong's false confidence opened the door to several basic mistakes that cost her dearly in a purplish state where plenty of old campaign rules still apply. Some folks on the campaign forgot Twitter isn't real life. One senior Wisconsin Democrat told me today. I don't know if it's a senior Wisconsin Democrat because he's been in politics for a long time, or whether he's an actual senior who could hold his own with those ladies at the table.
Yeah, I don't know.
Our primary electorate is older. It's not as young and online as a lot of her people thought. And what were people hearing in the last 2 weeks? One candidate defending a role post about canceling Thanksgiving, and another candidate endorsed by Tony Evers, who's very popular. Those are both pretty powerful motivators.
I guess so. I mean, they clearly were. I'm as an outsider, I'm sitting here. Well, what about this? One of them had an old post about Thanksgiving. Yeah. And then the other one, he was endorsed by Tony Evers. I've heard of that guy.
The Thanksgiving tweet in question, Hong in 2020 said the holiday celebrates colonialism and called it the original super spreader that killed indigenous folks and women, was just one example of her excessively woke internet footprint.
Yeah, okay. Right. And at that point you say, I was being overly, I was a little overwrought about a serious issue. But, people like Thanksgiving.
Late in the race, Hong's posts about defunding the police and criticizing whiteness became chum for the national press and conservative reactionaries on Fox News, who salivated over the prospect of running against her. The Republican Governors Association plowed millions of dollars into TV ads propping up Hong, hoping she would emerge as the loony left nominee against Tiffany, the MAGA-aligned GOP choice. That's money wasted. You can't get that money back. Not ready for prime time. Hong tried to back away from her more cartoonish identity politics, putting the focus on affordability and fighting data centers. That's how she got the lead.
Yes,
those are still two important issues.
We were big into that. We talked about it a lot, and nobody else was doing it, right?
Right. But she spooked more than a few Democrats who were not just about winning the governor's race, but about taking back the state legislature, which would give them a rare opportunity to undo an aggressive 2011 Republican gerrymander. Lefty icons who were perfectly happy to support Abdul El-Sayed's progressive campaign in Michigan, like Warren and Sanders, kept their distance. I don't know her, Warren said.
Hey, I know that.
Who is that? Wisconsin?
Right.
Never heard of it.
Her. Right. There's a meme. All right.
I mean, you can't win with that stuff. And so, just like Graham Plattner, you got to vet your candidates.
Well, we now get, maybe by next Thursday we'll have long investigative pieces about the consultants who recruited her to the race or who shepherded her.
Yeah, well, let's have long examinations of Tom Tiffany and his MAGA crap.
Oh, okay, yes.
On Sunday, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez was asked about the Thanksgiving tweet. I mean, in Wisconsin, people who hadn't made up their minds because Francesca Hong was 40-something in the polls, 40%, and more, 46, 45, whatever it was.
But
she got pretty close to what the polls said she was going to get. It's just that the rest of the voters decided to consolidate against Crowley. That's one of the reasons the polls are wrong. We'll get to that maybe in the second segment after the break.
All right.
Hong appeared confident the white liberals and leftists of Wisconsin would carry her to victory. Those are the vibes. She refused to attack Crowley, even as he was raising questions about her electability. And that was good, and that helps to, get unity. It was not a bitter campaign between the two of them.
Yeah.
In fact, when he came into the race, again, Hong, I think we played that in the interview, said, happy to have him. He deserves to be here if he wants to be. I have no issue whatsoever with him being in the race.
Yeah, I don't remember what
you talk like that about each other, it's easy to get unity after.
Yeah, well, good. That was a good position to take. She, I hope nobody gets to her and says, the thing you got to do next time is viciously attack your fellow Democrats in the primary.
And by the way, with that stuff on Thanksgiving, Crowley ran up the margins in crucial Waukesha County, and that's how he won. His margin there was bigger than his margin in the entire state.
About that. Okay. Well, well done. All right. So, yes, everybody gets advised to drop out, come back later.
Hi, Kagro in the Morning listeners. This is Rebecca Romans, longtime listener and longtime supporter of the show. Do you love your non-corporatized, completely independent, commercial-free Kagro in the Morning show? Do you stand out among the crowd at the office water cooler when discussing current events because of all the up-to-the-minute news you've been brought by David Waldman? Then it's time to give back a little. David relies on contributions from listeners like you and me to keep this show on the air. Patreon.com is among the easiest ways to make secure recurring monthly donations to support the show. Patreon.com/KagroX will bring you straight to his donation page, where you can sign up for any convenient tier you like. A mere $5 a month. You'll never miss it. Works out to about 25 cents a show. That means that David is making 12.5 cents an hour, which, by coincidence, is exactly what the GOP wants to lower the federal minimum wage to. Once again, David is ahead of the curve. If Patreon.com doesn't sound like your kind of thing, there's always PayPal, or even the Square Cash app. Any way you choose to donate, please choose to donate. And thank you on behalf of David and the rest of us listeners. Thank you very much.
All right, welcome back, everyone, to the Kagro in the Morning show here on Netroots Radio. Our second segment, Greg Dworkin still here. We're still in Wisconsin. There's more. Well, we're not, but we're still talking about Wisconsin. If you're in Wisconsin now, you're still there. So fantastic. Nothing has changed. That I didn't want to alarm anybody, but you're still in the state you began the show in, for most of you, unless you're driving. In which case, please pull over, be safe, and don't get yourself involved in the accidents. All right. Where did we? Oh, we were in the middle of your favorite article of the day.
My favorite article of the day from Puck, from Peter Hamby.
Yeah.
Talking about how Crowley won. Crowley also ran up healthy margins in traditionally Republican Waukesha County, which is now home to plenty of white normie resistance-style Democrats. We met them at that table with the reporter. especially women who were likely spooked by Hong's leftism and her chances in November. These are suburban voters who, in Wisconsin's racialized political tradition, might normally reject the black Democrat from the city, but they favored Crowley over Hong by a lot. Waukesha has more young people now, and while it's economically more conservative, there are plenty of pro-abortion, college-educated women who are country club types who hate Trump, one veteran Wisconsin Democrat told me. Well, Hong would have struggled to win these voters in the general, and they were late deciders who went to Crowley.
All right. Although, yeah, I'm still fascinated by the thing you said that you saw. That now I'm curious about was there a plurality for someone other than there had to have been.
I think I don't remember.
I'm just curious,
her name. Reyes was the other progressive in the race.
Okay.
We didn't do all that well.
Yeah. Sometimes it
doesn't
work.
There was a plurality. There was not a majority among those 7 or 8 people.
Well, right, because there were 7 or 8 of them running.
So then Hamby goes on to talk about what I want to talk about as well, the polling mirage. Gets to the polling question. As with most races this year, polling of the Wisconsin race was sparse and flawed. The state's premier survey, the Marquette poll, hadn't shared figures since late July, just after Crowley rejoined the race and before the final blizzard of negative news coverage around Hong. That final blizzard around negative news coverage around Hong was key. And I don't know if Hamby's going to say this. I haven't read this part yet. But I will tell you that when you have a relatively fast-moving situation, like that Thanksgiving thing that basically, you may think it's silly, but everybody was talking about it.
Yeah.
It's one of those things that's indicative of something, even if you don't know what that something is. But it was out there. It was a thing. And polls just weren't picking up on that because it was raising doubts about her ability to win a general election, and Democrats care about that. Voters in the primary, I mean.
Well, okay. Everybody cares about winning.
Well, your vote matters. So before the final blizzard of negative news coverage, campaign observers were left with internal polls from the campaigns pushing their spin, or text-to-web polls that were more likely to reach Hong's young and vocal supporters, rather than rural or older voters who proved decisive. Hong led almost every poll by a lot. Everyone fell for the polling hype, the senior Wisconsin Democrat told me. There was a common theme in every poll, though. Anywhere from 20 to 30% of voters remain undecided. And Crowley went after those voters hard. Wisconsin's one of the country's premier political battlegrounds, with high-stakes elections happening almost every year. Wisconsin voters in both parties are highly engaged. They're used to this, in a way, in my comment. And he says if there's one character trait that unites Democrats in the Donald Trump era, it's they care very much about winning.
Yes, it's a way of preventing
that is the theme.
Another Donald
Trump. The
state
state of Wisconsin is simply not a congressional district in Brooklyn or Denver, and the Crowley-Evers crowd made a late messaging push raising concerns about Hong's ability to beat Tiffany. And when a coveted trifecta in the State House, that's a local issue, because Scott Walker had so screwed up the state, you got to win both houses back and the governorship to fix things. Remember, this is the a state legislator that as soon as Tony Evers was elected changed the rules so that he can't do anything.
Yeah. How much more popular would he be had he been able to exercise those powers?
Right.
I wonder.
So the final blitz clearly pulled undecided Democrats to Crowley. Primary polling is usually more error-prone than general election polling. Just remember the polling miss in Michigan. Like Michigan, Wisconsin holds an open primary with no partisan voter registration. A reminder that Al Sayed was up by 16 points in an Emerson poll heading into the election. So when you see an Emerson poll today that says that Ken Paxton leads Tallarico by a point, first lead he's had in any poll in like a month, don't worry about it.
Okay.
Like Michigan, Wisconsin holds an open primary with no partisan voter registration, leaving pollsters to do plenty of guesswork when modeling the potential electorate. Same thing with Texas. Most polls assume the electorate will be far younger than it was, a modeling error that artificially boosted Hong, but in both of Wisconsin's last 2 comparable August primaries, voters over the age of 65 cast more than half the ballots. Wisconsin's never produced a primary electorate as young as the one pollsters were predicting. Betting on young people to vote rarely turns out well for Democrats or Democratic Socialists, unless you're talking about New York City and Zoran Mamdani. That's just it's a sui generis. It's a rara avis. It's a weird sitch that you can't just duplicate everywhere.
Yeah, that's a lot of slang.
But young people did show up for Hong's election. They showed up for the party anyway, producing a series of images that will endure as an amusing time capsule. in which the DSA, despite occasional victories, has struggled to get past this reputation as a movement dominated by mostly white, urbane young people with too many degrees, too many tattoos, and too many political ideas harvested from social media. And I go back to the Francis Hung rally in Milwaukee with Hassan Piker with white people.
Yes. Well, there were going to be some.
Yeah. So that's the setting. And so, these polls missed because they modeled who was going to show up wrongly, and they didn't poll
I would like to
frequently enough right before the election to pick up the late-breaking stuff that all went Crowley's way, all of it.
It was an error in their guess, to be sure. I will say, I mean, I'm not too mad or anything because, one, I don't care honestly about what the polls said versus what actually happened. But I'd like to give some credit to pollsters who are thinking, they always say the young voters aren't going to show up, but I'm starting to get the feeling that they really are going to show up, and I'd like to give them some more credit. So that's the good part of it. But then
again, they showed up in New York. They got rid of Andrew Cuomo.
Yeah.
But so they might have thought here.
Yeah. They might have thought
but actually, when you look at the numbers, it did show up. It's just that the seniors showed up more. Remember, these are big numbers.
Yes, that's
true.
If
you were modeling it on, 500,000 people are going to show up, just like last time. 700,000 did. Some of them are young.
Yeah, probably a lot of them. And so, you weren't wrong about the increased number of younger voters. You just missed that.
You just missed the seniors, that's all.
More older ones, and I don't know.
Reminds me of John Kerry losing to George W. Bush in Ohio.
Okay.
Where Kerry said, we hit our numbers.
Oh, yeah, right. Okay.
And Bush said, yeah, but so did we, and ours are bigger than yours.
Yeah, okay. Well, it's a continuing theme. We do see that a lot, and there's no rhyme or reason to who is able to juice that turnout. Everybody who tries to do it doesn't necessarily succeed. But
you got to have the candidate.
Yeah, I guess so. I don't know what was the
you got to have the horse.
Bush thing, but okay.
It's a horse race. You got to have the horse.
Yeah. Well, there are a lot of lessons to be drawn from this, and not all of them are not all of them are the
correct ones.
Youngs.
But I hope you learn something from it if you listen and think about what they're going to talk about on the show.
A thing to learn about. I haven't seen this yet. We haven't had enough time pass yet, but by next week, it will be interesting. We mentioned the data centers as an issue, and as I recall, if I have the right race in mind. With this crowded field, you were saying that it was Hong who was the only one really discussing data centers at all. And I don't remember whether there was other people saying, no, I'm pro data center, or just everybody was like, that's not an issue for me, or what.
Well, all I would say is, and I'll get into trouble for saying it, but I'll say it anyway.
All right, everybody.
You can't use genocide and data centers as a tagline without substance and think it means the same thing to everybody.
Genocide and data centers.
We're against genocide. What does that mean? What if the technical thing that's happening in Gaza is crimes against humanity? Bad stuff is happening, but it's not technically a genocide. What about that? Well, that spoils my line.
I guess. I wouldn't have thought of that as a line like, I don't know what to do with somebody who says, well, my thing is genocide and data centers. Really? Together? No, I'm against both. Oh, okay.
I'm against genocide, AIPAC, and data centers. Well, what's the problem with data centers? Well, they use a ton of water and electricity, and they don't fit the community. Okay. What about if we designed one that fit a little better, that scaled down, that fit into the community, and helped power the internet that you use every day to complain about data center? What about that?
Well, there is that. That'd be helpful.
What if there were nuance in this?
Listen, I want you to say, for right now, there's a really dour and downer issue we need to pay attention to, and that's the possibility of genocide. Okay, let's definally want to approach that from a different standpoint.
Okay, fine, but just don't label everybody. You were on the other side, and you're AIPAC sponsored.
No, that's worked nowhere. But I just mixing it with data centers. Like I need a pause. We should have a commercial break in between the discussion of these two things. They're totally different classes.
Don't use them as code words.
I guess not.
Use them as issues and define the issue and talk about what you mean and mean what you say and say what you mean. And just don't throw the word out there. You can't expect everybody to pivot and say, well, that's the most important thing. It's a very important thing if you're there, if it's a local issue, but if it's a local issue, locals understand what the issues are.
Yeah.
But don't try to use that as a broad brush, painting everything and everybody and make it into the establishment.
Well, okay. And you heard, that was the first thing we heard from Crowley today.
Right.
Okay. So I was thinking, though, about the data center thing. Now, more likely than, say, genocide, to just easily transition into discussing.
That was more of a Michigan issue than it was in Wisconsin.
But
it was a Michigan issue for certain, for sure.
Was it not, though, that Hong was the only one mentioning it, or was that, do I misremember? Yeah.
She was the only one that was mentioning data centers when she was in the lead.
One of the
that was Hong.
Races. Okay. Yeah, what I'm curious about now is whether we find that as the race now progresses, whether Crowley says, they had something going here. They had a lot of people interested and excited about data centers. One of these hot button, hot take issues, data centers, and another good reason to put it in a different category than something like pondering genocide. That's not a hot, passing fad of a discussion.
For a general election. Yeah. Remember, we're moving away from the primary and into a general election.
But I thought if, like the data centers and the flock cameras, for some reason it's on everybody's minds.
That's a big deal here locally. People are very upset about flock cameras, but I don't know that you win an election on it.
Maybe not. Although it is a very big tent issue, and there are a lot of Republicans who are getting upset about it. I don't know whether they're going to say, oh yeah, I'm going to switch my vote, because it also makes it very easy for Republicans to say, oh yeah, today I hate flock cameras too. Tomorrow I love them, but whatever. Right. But the data center thing, what I think will be interesting to see is if Crowley then, say, adopts either the Hong, I don't know whether it has to adopt Hong's position, or now says, clearly this is something that at least some number of people want to talk about. I need to address it. And it'll be interesting to watch who in the Hong camp divides, and you'll know which ones are going to be around for the next election in an effective way when you see one group say, that's not fair. Hong had that as an issue before.
That's our issue.
Everybody, you can't.
You're not allowed.
Right. You get out of here. You're trying to horn in on versus people who say,
stolen valor. We thought of it first. Go away.
We may have lost the primary, but the more important thing is that we got the candidate who did win to pick up on one of our issues and recognize it as an important one and something that they should be addressing. That's a victory. The people who see the victory will be able to hang on longer, will be around for the next election, will be effective in the next election, more so than the people who say, I'm not going to play because my candidate had this idea first and you rejected her, and I'm not, don't even call on me in the election.
Well, the bigger picture here is that it's our issue, it's an important issue, I'd rather lose than give up that issue, and the Democratic electorate is saying, we're just looking for who could win.
Yeah. I mean, it would be a weird place to get that upset about. I don't understand how even extremists, if there are extremists on data centers, like, if somebody else says, hey, maybe this is an issue, I can't imagine a whole lot of them saying, you're not allowed to talk about it. But if there are some,
what's happening in Gaza is horrible. People are dying. It's awful. Crimes against humanity. That's how it should be investigated. Not to downplay that. But I hate buzzwords and slogan. I just hate it. It doesn't mean anything.
It certainly makes it
difficult.
You
throw in AIPAC, and now I know you don't even know what you're talking about. You're just using it because it sounds good.
Yeah. It does make it difficult for people who might say, actually, I do want to engage on this, and it's tough.
It's a nuanced, tough issue. Let's talk about it. Well, no, not if you're just going to use slogans.
Yeah, you
can say, in any case, let's get back to the theme here.
I don't understand how that happened. Okay.
The theme here, Democratic voters have one weird obsession. It's winning. A few days ago, conventional wisdom held that Francesca Hong would comfortably win the Democratic gubernatorial race. One Democratic operative put his reputation on the line, predicting just the opposite. David Crowley would emerge victorious, argued Pat Dennis, the president of the Democratic opposition research firm American Bridge 21st Century, and he'd win for one reason and one reason only.
Oh, I doubt that.
Electability is such a real and persistent motivator in Dem primaries in the Trump era. Dennis tweeted on Monday before the primary, and I'll take a real risk of looking stupid and say Hong loses.
All right. That was a real risk at the time.
And Dennis didn't look stupid. In fact, his reasoning for making the prediction looks to be one of the more sage and underappreciated insights into the current id of the Democratic electorate. To borrow the phrase coined by Al Davis, the party just wants to win, baby. And its primary voters are making judgments based on their perceptions about which candidate gives them the best chance of doing so in November. There's a really lazy desire to map everything happening in Democratic primaries onto a mirror image of the Tea Party or the MAGA movement, Dennis said. But he added, Democratic primary voters are fundamentally different people than Republican primary voters. He's talking to this reporter. Democratic primary voters care a lot about the continuation of their institutions, the governing legacy of somebody like Evers, and are relatively plugged in and totally open to persuasion on the issue, is this person electable? The electability question is the key element of this political season. It's popped up time and again. Tallarico over Crockett, establishment figures forcing out Graham Plattner, but rarely has it been on such vivid display as in Wisconsin on Tuesday night. After briefly suspending his campaign and coming back, Crowley wins. He emphasized what was at stake, the chance of GOP Representative Tom Tiffany, a committed election denier, sitting in the governor's mansion during the 2028 presidential year. And Crowley reminded voters Republicans are running ads boosting Hong's campaign in the hopes of having an easier general election matchup, which is true. They were behind a lot of the money she had. She didn't put a lot of money into advertising. She didn't need to. Republicans are doing it for her. Democrats became aware of that, and they were not happy about it.
Sure.
But insiders say the biggest factor was Evers. A towering figure for Wisconsin Democrats, Evers has become a living personification of the type of political approach it takes for the party to break through the Republican stranglehold. He unseated Scott Walker, won re-election, and has been in office as the party has won critical state Supreme Court races. Evers appears to be on the verge of un-gerrymandering the state and congressional maps, but he's got to get a trifecta to do that. Having initially promised to stay out of the primary, his imprimatur was, according to a Crowley campaign, a key signal to voters. If they wanted the best chance to beat Tiffany, Crowley. And if there was any confusion, Evers hammered it home when he told the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel Hong probably couldn't win. It would be Crowley and Evers saying, we can't let Republicans meddle in our nomination, a Crowley campaign said. They're making the electability point, but consciously not wailing on her by name, because people here are very educated, highly attuned. Really? They don't need to be reminded who she is. They didn't need to be slammed over the head with it. What they didn't. They know what she said about Thanksgiving.
Right, I didn't know.
There were people in their heart might have agreed with Hong, but in the end went with Crowley for electability. So that's the story.
Okay. Yeah, there's a certain, I don't know, there's a bristling that comes with having to discuss electability again. But it is a real concept, and it can't be used
everybody
as a
shares it. The thing is who
cover-up.
decides. The bristling is over, like, you can't tell me who's electable. You don't know.
That's also
I'll
true.
make my own decision. But when I do, I'm going to make it on electability.
Yeah. Right. Well, I guess that could be it. And I don't know. We also find sometimes people are surprising. People who we were told are not electable when they become a candidate, sometimes it happens. Yes. Yeah. I guess that's true. So yeah, it's an easy way to shunt aside a more substantive conversation sometimes, but it's on everybody's mind. It has to be. That's why we have these primary contests. Figure out who do we think is going to be able to carry the ball forward.
Well, that's a point I was trying to make earlier. I like substantive conversations, and buzzwords and slogans don't get you there.
Yes.
That's the only way you can put data centers and genocide in the
buzzwords are great. Everybody? Yeah. No, I say, yeah, right. Anything that lands you on, like, your bumper sticker is going to be genocide and data centers.
Yeah, well, that's like,
don't do that.
That's like being in Maine and trying to put maple syrup and lobster together. They're both delicious, but they don't go together.
Yeah, okay, that's true. Although, I feel like we've made a dramatic shift in the tenor of the conversation just alone in the one tagline you had before, genocide and data centers. But throwing in lobster and maple syrup is just making a mockery of the whole thing.
I want to talk about this in a substantive way, not buzzwords. So, unlike in Wisconsin, the general election polls in Michigan weren't showing huge electability gaps.
Okay.
In fact, Adam Carlson, a pollster for pro-El Sayed Super PAC, told me part of the campaign strategy was to highlight the fact that there was no difference in electability. But El Sayed was also able to put to rest a fair bit of the electability concerns because he's just such a good campaigner. Hong, by contrast, was shaky in the race's closing days, doing a variety of interviews, but never successfully quieting concerns she would wilt in a general race due to her past woke-laden tweets and proclamations.
I guess. Woke now also, that's a little buzzwordy as well, especially now as I'm now being confused. I'm sort of kind of on already caught up with, okay, woke, sure, okay, I think I understand what people are talking about. Now they've got numbers involved, and I don't know.
Oh yeah, numbers. Woke 1 and woke 2. Have you seen that? People are throwing that.
I have. I've seen woke 1. It implies that there's a woke 2. I'm not certain I've seen either of them defined. Now it's okay. I'm not the kind of person who's, well, you can't discuss it with me unless you define your terms. I'll wait. I'll let people define it. I'll get it by osmosis, but I am
all of the things that people are complaining about in terms of woke have real reasons for existing. You know, whether it's George Floyd and whether it's the too easy killing of black men for no good reason by the cops. I mean, but you can't translate that into defund the police and think you're going to get anywhere. So the fact that the slogan sucks shouldn't hide the fact that the underlying issue is important. You know, we talked about this before.
Yes, sure.
You know, it's a terrible slogan, but it doesn't completely wipe out the fact that the reason that it came into being or abolish ICE.
Maybe you don't like any
people, in fact, like safety and security. They just don't like what's happening, which is why Susan Collins is in trouble in Maine because of that Biddeford shooting. So all of that matters. And anecdotal voter data also bears out the idea that despite Democratic voters' frustration with the party establishment, they're still primarily motivated by perceptions of electability. However curious they might feel about what DSA-style candidates have to offer, they're more interested in defeating Republicans. It's the old battle between voters' hearts and voters' minds. In focus groups conducted by the Bulwark, Democratic voters often talk about having to choose between a candidate they personally like and one who they think can get elected. This year, this is me, not this article.
Okay.
This year, they're picking who they think could get elected.
Yeah.
People who are totally behind a candidate are upset with that. You should vote for who you think is the best candidate. No, you should vote for who you think can be elected.
Yeah.
Now you have to be right about
overlap.
That. But yeah, I mean, don't vote for somebody who can't get. It's not okay to say, "Well, we lost, but we were on the right side of the issues."
It is if you were
Adlai
trying to
Stevenson,
win,
my friends. Adlai Stevenson, look it up.
All
right-minded, intelligent people should vote for you. That's not enough, madam. I need a majority.
Mm-hmm.
It's such a good line.
There is the thing, though. I mean, I guess you do have to either win or get whoever does prevail to acknowledge that your issues are important and have been presented the right way. And with Republicans, that's just not going to happen.
Right.
You can't win. You can't persuade them on the issues.
Here's an example.
Yeah.
In a late July focus group of Wisconsin Democrats, Chris, a voter from the Milwaukee suburbs, expressed some hesitation that Hong might be the weaker of the bunch and was wary of the Republican effort to boost their campaign. So they were aware. Focus group.
I wasn't.
I'm curious about, and I haven't had a chance to research it in the past couple of days, the Republican Party supporting her as well because they know she might be a pushover, he added. So if she wins a primary, she might not make it, In a text to the Bulwark on Wednesday, Chris said he ended up voting for Crowley, saying that Hong's media appearances and comments on holidays wouldn't fly anywhere and didn't sit right with me.
Yeah. I guess that's the thing. Yeah, I don't know why, oh yeah, I did tweet that was, I don't know, it was just some dumb thing I was thinking about. Would that fly? I guess not.
So with the general election races mostly set, Democrats enter the fall with their chess pieces arranged pretty well to compete in red and purple states with Senate candidates Tyler Rico in Texas, Roy Cooper in North Carolina, Sherrod Brown in Ohio, Josh Turek in Iowa. Even if he hates Connecticut, I would still vote for him.
Yeah, what's up?
And Mary Peltola in Alaska. And why does he hate Connecticut? See yesterday's show. The party managed to maneuver its way out of the Plattner mess in generally Democratic-leaning Maine, and there's talk of expanding the Senate map to deeper red terrain with states like Nebraska, Kansas, and Mississippi. When Josh Turek ran a very good ad about, being pro-USA and hating the fighting in Washington, his ad used a couple of Connecticut Congress people as examples of yelling and screaming as opposed to, Midwestern nice. So there you go.
Yeah, I don't know how he picked Connecticut. That is a real mystery. And Larson's the real.
John Larson and Rosa DeLauro were his two picks.
Yeah, I don't know. It doesn't make any particular sense, but
still, there are some Democrats. But it's interesting. He picked Democrats so he could run against the National Party.
Yeah, it seems odd, and I don't love that, but I guess that works wherever he is.
Yeah. Still, there are some Democrats who worry it's only a matter of time for a majority Democratic primary voters become invested in elevating leftist and socialist candidates at the cost of electability concerns. Third Way, for example, putting a ton of money to stop DSA.
When have they won anything? This is ridiculous.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Splinter group themselves.
So just a few minutes left, and I'm glad to see for a change we actually had more material than we had time to fit it in.
Oh.
How the polls got it so wrong in Wisconsin from the New York Times. What happened? Possible explanations range from genuine last-minute change in voter sentiment. I think that's in fact what happened. She faced significant negative publicity in the closing days of the race. What about, David? What was that negative publicity about?
Thanksgiving, apparently.
This is your test, yes. 2 miscalculations by pollsters about the makeup of the primary electorate. Just the things we were talking about.
Yeah. Thanksgiving. All right. Well, that was I will say this. Whoever broke the story, it's a good question. When do you time a story like that? Do you go earlier or early voting, or do you wait until the last minute? And I guess in a 8 candidate, however many there were in that race, late is, I guess, the answer. Because everybody makes up their minds late, even though, I don't know, somebody, I guess, thought that was unique.
Don't forget, the front-runner had to drop out because of questions about her campaign manager mismanaging money.
Well, don't forget that the winner dropped out and had to come back because I don't know why. That's crazy.
What an odd campaign. Washington Post, Wisconsin surprises raise big questions about polls and Democratic voters, which I think we've answered on the show, but I'm just telling you, everybody's asking those questions.
Yes. Where was the Republican race where the guy dropped out and came back? And then, it was the one where Trump endorsed a guy who had...
Trump endorsed the guy who had an Arabic-sounding name, and Republicans refused to vote for him and voted for the guy who dropped out.
Right, and he had stayed dropped out. He was still out, or he had suspended his campaign. I guess that's why you do that, by the way, technically speaking. If you're thinking
suspend
about
your campaign,
stopping,
you don't stop your campaign.
Yeah, if you drop out...
Now, this is Politico, another L for polling. And what happened? The finger pointing has begun after polls created perceptions of wide leads for the progressives. The big polling leads for Hong and Michigan Senate Abdullah Sayed shaped the narratives. Maybe we should stop treating primary polls as breaking news, longtime Wisconsin journalist J.R. Ross said. Polling Wisconsin is really hard.
I guess it should probably happen everywhere, but what else? I mean, a poll is news. In the political coverage. I can't help it.
Or the way the Bulwark put it with Brilliant Crystal. The night Thanksgiving was saved.
Boy, they really went in.
Them chose defeating Trump over defeating themselves.
I do question the ability of the governor of Wisconsin to stop Thanksgiving.
Yeah. These polls suck. What's going on with polls? We at the Bulwark are demanding a complete and total shutdown of polling until we can figure out what the hell is going on. About 20 people said that, so I thought that was pretty funny.
I guess it's a trend now, and they're troublesome. But I mean, everybody wants to hear them, and when we don't have them, we complain. How come nobody's polling these races? We don't know what's going on. Don't worry, it will pull the race. You still won't know what's going on. But we will have pulled the race. I could just light money on fire and know nothing. How about that? I guess it's more efficient. All right, we will see you next week. All right, welcome back to the Kagro in the Morning Show here on Netroots Radio. We got all the answers, and everybody wanted to talk about the polling. Don't stop polling. I say continue with it, even though sometimes it's wrong, and then but it's good fodder, because then you get Thursday articles about why the polling was wrong. No one believes it, but it doesn't matter. And everybody always wants to hear polling, regardless. So people want to know what the results were. And so some people want to then parse the crosstabs, and others just say, it doesn't mean anything. If your candidate lost, it doesn't mean anything. You get the idea. All right. A lot of other things to catch up on, but you got to spend your hour, when you get precious time with Greg Dworkin, you got to spend your time on those granular issues that help explain things, and the nuance that makes it difficult for Russian, Chinese, and Iranian hackers and bot farms to genuinely meddle in American politics in ways that are undetectable. The smarter you are, the better you know the nuances, the easier it is to spot someone who doesn't, riding in and trying to drop bombs in your favorite social media platform. But anyway, lots more to get to today, and we better race through some of them, and I'll do my best to try and get to the top line of things. One, there's still freaking news happening, being developed about the airplane thing and the I'm going to hide in a beverage cart. I just love to say it that way. Hiding in a beverage cart to sneak out of a NATO country. And, by the way, leaving everybody else on the decoy plane to get shot at. And we forgot to get to this. And I know Greg mentioned to me before we went on the air. Caroline Leavitt is out. She's leaving as White House press secretary. She's, resigning to spend more time with her family. You know how that goes. And she's got one, so that is something. But she loves lying for Donald Trump. And it must have taken something extraordinary for her to make the decision to stop hanging around, raking in money, and getting cameras in her face all the time by lying for Donald Trump. And what might that have been? Well, I guess the easiest speculation is she didn't like being left on the death plane, I suppose. And by the way, I don't know if we mentioned it or not, but I have seen over the past couple of days the reporting on who got transferred with Trump in the beverage cart to the other plane. And the answer is, and I guess this had to be done in order to help preserve the illusion. Whoever like the high-ranking people, high-ranking White House staff and cabinet members, for the most part, left on the decoy plane. And then moving over to Hegseth's plane was Trump himself. But he took with him, let's see, Dan Scavino and, what's her name? Natalie Harp? And there was another person, too, who I forget already, but whose name is also well known as... the roster was very insightful in that he just basically took his meme team with him and his personal handmaiden with him and nobody else. And I know a lot of people have been commenting on that. Here we are. In fact, who's this? James. Hi, James. Who's James? James is Gravity's Rainbow, who, and by the way, the I in Rainbow is a number 1. So, I guess the name got taken and he went with the 1 in there. Anyway, but James here, and I know nothing else about James except that he's got a Substack, othermeans.substack.com. There's your plug, I guess. James said, tremendous insight into the inner workings of the Trump administration that the NSA, the National Security Advisor, Secretary of State, etc., allowed to go down in a fireball, along with Caroline Leavitt, who I guess has had enough. But the person who posts AI slop for the president qualified as needing to survive at all costs. He's playing off of the Dan Lamothe piece. The military affairs reporter with the Washington Post, who I guess, first of all, posted a link to today's story about that, or yesterday's story about it, and saying the scoop is that the people on the airport catering truck used to secretly move President Trump off of an Air Force One 747 in Turkey included Dan Scavino, Natalie Harp, I mentioned. Walt Nauta. You remember him as the, body man / butler / I don't know what else down at Pervalago. And I think they also mentioned that these 3 people are people that stuck with him and worked for him in the Biden interregnum, I guess, down in Pervalago, and were his personal attendants. Walt Nauta was the guy who was criminally charged in one of the Jack Smith cases. He was the guy responsible for moving the boxes. Remember when the FBI was coming to actually take back all the classified documents that Trump had stolen when he left the White House in 2021? And Nauta was the guy tasked with moving them so that the FBI personnel would not find them. And he's still around and still doing dumb stuff, and I guess still makes the cut when it comes to moving him from one plane to another. It seems pretty wild. So what was that? The Washington Post piece, is it... Dan Lamothe and Kat... Zakruski is my best guess at the last name on that one. But they wrote this piece yesterday under the headline of Close Aides but No Cabinet Officials Joined Trump in Airport Catering Truck. The president was accompanied by the White House Deputy Chief of Staff, it's a fancy title, but it's still Dan Scavino, his executive assistant, another fancy title, but it's still Natalie Harp, and the Director of Oval Office Operations, which is too fancy a title for Walt Nauta to actually deserve, but he's got it. Well, none of the three deserve those titles. That all according to officials with knowledge of the situation. And here is a photo of that catering truck secreting him off of what we'll call the old Air Force One 747. Got it? I mean, everything's in Air Force One, including that catering truck, I guess, for the brief amount of time that he was in it. I wonder how long he had to sit in there. Anyway, there's a full article about it. I think it's just going to get in the way if we read it. I just thought it was an interesting point. It does tell you something about the man when I don't know who makes the decision. Also, I guess now I'm starting to suspect, because Trump did blab about this and said, oh, well, why did you do it? Or I don't remember how they even got to him saying it. But he's saying, I just follow what the Secret Service says to do. And they said it was important for me to move, and I took their advice. I'm beginning to wonder whether, because he went out of his way to say that, I mean, that should have been the assumption, but because he went out of his way to say that I was just following the Secret Service's advice, Donald Trump, I guess that means, wait a minute, there's some significant possibility here that he got word of a threat, and now we have reporting that indicates that the threat was not taken all that seriously by the people whose job it is to evaluate those threats, and he, panicked, get me out of here. And it's such a dumb way of moving him from one plane to another that it's possible to think maybe this was Trump's idea in the first place, or at least maybe it was his idea. I heard about the threat, I want to take a different plane, and then he put it to the Secret Service, how the hell will I get from one plane to the next without giving it away? And they came up with the, food truck thing, the food cart. I'm not sure, some combination of the two, but I'm beginning to think that because he went out of his way to say this was their idea, you could only draw one conclusion from that. If Donald Trump said it, that must mean it wasn't their idea. So I'm a little curious about that. But I guess the reporting that calls the whole thing into question is here in Instapaper. Let me open it up. But apparently, I'll give you the headline from the Washington Post. CIA had, quote, low confidence in Iranian threat before Trump switched planes in Turkey. Not that the CIA knows everything or is always appropriately worried or not worried in every situation, but, those are the people who are paid to assess these things. CIA had doubts about Israeli intelligence on a threat to Trump in Turkey that prompted an extraordinary secret flight. So I guess the reports of the Iranian plot came from Israel, which now, of course, makes you think, well, what was this all about? What did they think of the threat, or did they just pass it on, or were they waving their hands wildly and saying, oh my God, this is real? And do we entertain the possibility that because Trump has kind of sort of been dismissive of Netanyahu and maybe embarrassing or humiliating him in some way, do they ever give thought to, you know what, I got an idea. Here's a great way to make Trump look like a chump. I'll tell him, the Iranians are going to shoot down your new Qatari bribe plane. You got to switch planes. And they're going to shoot down the old Air Force One as well. So, you got to escape that one too. And we have this idea of how you're going to do it, and it'll be in the food cart, in the beverage cart. I don't know. I guess I would entertain that as a possibility at this point. Let's find out. Warren P. Strobel, John Hudson, and Dan Lamothe, there he is again, on this piece published yesterday evening. U.S. intelligence officials were skeptical of an Iranian assassination threat against President Donald Trump that was relayed by Israel. and prompted an extraordinary clandestine maneuver that saw him secretly fly out of Turkey in an alternate military aircraft, although painted to look like an Air Force One. So that's an important detail that just isn't getting discussed, really. I mean, I guess if you see 3 planes flying overhead, one of them is different, but you've heard in the news that that's the Qatari bribe plane, Air Force One, and then the other 2 that just look like Air Force One used to look. I don't know. Maybe you only have 1 Stinger missile, or certainly 1 shot at doing this, and you got to decide which plane you're going to do it with. That could be confusing, certainly. But anyway, okay. The assassination threat was relayed by the Israeli government to the CIA, where analysts did not view the intelligence as compelling and conveyed that skepticism to Trump administration officials, one of the officials said. Another official, that's a lot of use of the word official, called the reports of threats against Trump's life Israeli-derived, not U.S.-generated, and viewed as low confidence. The doubts in some quarters about an imminent threat to the president add a new element to the White House's decision last month, first reported by the Washington Post, to shield Trump's whereabouts as he departed a NATO summit in Ankara, Turkey on July 8th. As the Post first reported this week, after concerns arose about whether the new 747-8 plane gifted by Qatar had sufficient security measures to transport the president out of a potentially hostile environment, Trump boarded a legacy Air Force One in Ankara, but he secretly left that aircraft and was shuttled in an airport catering truck to a third plane, an Air Force C-32A, that flew him and a few key aides to Britain. As I'm reading that, I'm thinking, like if you were just interested in misdirection, right, and you get intelligence of value, varying import, I guess, or people have differing thoughts about how credible it is or how serious it is. But if the threat is, well, we're going to shoot down the Qatari bribe plane, and then you make a big deal out of switching to the old plane and you announce it. I wonder if Trump decided to blab about it, thinking, well, if I blab about it, then the Iranians will say, aha, he's going to be on the old plane. And then he thought, now I'm going to switch back secretly to the Qatari bribe plane and fly in comfort and style, and they'll think I'm on the other one. Or whether, and then somebody said, well, no, I think that there's a pretty good reason to believe they want to blow up the Qatari one regardless, just to embarrass you. We'd like to see you on a third one. Or whose idea was it to go on a third one? I could see Trump saying, if I say I'm going for old time's sake on the other one, that's it. The Iranians will believe me because everybody believes my lies. That's just the way it goes. And I don't know whether he thought the third plane was a good idea or someone else did. I'm a little bit curious about that. The White House on Wednesday did not directly answer questions about the intelligence that the United States received or how it was perceived by U.S. officials. And then a quote from who? I don't know. Oh, an anonymous official. As the president has said, he faced numerous threats on his life, including ones from Iran, and every measure is taken to ensure his safety. I don't know why you would do the anonymity on that one there. You're towing the line. Anyway, the United States Secret Service's core mission is protecting the president, which they achieved, says this anonymous person who advances the ball for the Trump administration, so I don't know why anonymous. The CIA declined to comment. The Israeli embassy in Washington did not immediately respond to a request for details. Ultimately, the White House and the Secret Service appear to have decided they could take no chances. I mean, that's the best sounding explanation for it, but I bet there's a dumber one that's really at the heart of it. The Iranian threat to kill Trump and other senior U.S. officials has been a major concern since the 2020 assassination of Qasem Soleimani, the head of the Iran Quds Force, who those worries have only grown since the killing of Iran's supreme leader in February, along with scores of other top officials at the start of the Iran war. I mean, I think that probably is a superseding indictment in the Iranian view. Yeah, killing Ayatollah Khamenei actually makes us mad. We're still upset about Soleimani, but I guess if we actually achieved the goal here and were able, if they said they were able to assassinate Donald Trump, I assume they would say, well, they'd probably take the time to name both of them. But I bet Khomeini gets higher billing. Trump has survived 3 known assassination plots, questionable, dating back to his 2024 presidential campaign, although there is no known link between any of the suspects in those instances and Iran. Despite questions about Israeli intelligence, the elaborate plan enacted by the Secret Service in Ankara was done out of an abundance of caution, the first official said. The Secret Service has had 3 near misses with this president, so they're not taking any chances. They did what they had to do. The Wall Street Journal first reported last month that Israel had shared intelligence with the U.S. government on this Iranian threat. The aircraft that ferried Trump from Ankara to Britain's Mildenhall Air Base was escorted by F-16 fighter jets, according to 2 U.S. officials and other material reviewed by the Post. Oh, yes, right. I was wondering whether the, C-32A, somebody gave us the number the other day, but the plane painted up just like Air Force One that was carrying Hegseth, does that have the defensive capabilities that the old Air Force One had, which was the reason ostensibly why they moved him from the new bribe plane one to the old one? And then if you're going to, say, well, there's the threat of an assassination attempt, do you move him to a plane that doesn't have defensive capabilities? And if that's the case, I mean, if Trump had thought to ask such questions, if this C-32 doesn't have anti-missile defenses, then I might as well be on the Qatari bribe plane, assuming that it would be missiles that were targeting Air Force One, whichever one was the true Air Force One that he was on, rather than say, the threat is they're going to throw rocks at the plane. Well, that's not much of a threat. So if missiles are the threat, I mean, unless they said somehow we've infiltrated the ground crews and they've planted a bomb on board, and that would make people upset. I guess that could make Caroline Leavitt upset. You left me on the bomb plane. Oh, well. There was no bomb, so don't worry about it. And I mean, I think generally speaking, my guess is that the Air Force One is kind of, escorted by F-16 fighter jets with some frequency. Trump, in his first public comments on the clandestine operation, said Tuesday night that the decision for him to take an alternate airplane was made by the Secret Service. Now, I have to doubt it because that's what he said. It's really just up to the Secret Service. I just follow what they like to do, Trump told reporters. They wanted me to go on a different flight, a different plane, equal safety. I do what they say. So I guess it's all wrong. Some U.S. intelligence officials saw Israel's sharing of the warning about threats to Trump's life as designed less to inform than to influence the president's decision-making and U.S. policy in the region, a current and former U.S. official said. So it might not have been like a fake thing to make him look bad. It might have been just, well, we're going to tell you that Iran wants to assassinate you, and that's going to make you mad and keep you engaged in the war. Israel views Iran, of course, as by far its most urgent near-term threat. I say, of course, I don't know whether it's necessarily the truth, but we definitely know that they think that. But it views Turkey as a medium to long-range threat and is anxious about warming ties between Washington and Ankara, bolstered by the personal rapport between Trump and Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan, the current official said. It fit a broader pattern of Israeli intelligence reporting that some officials see as designed as much to shape presidential decision-making as to inform it. The former official familiar with the matter said, this person said he understood that Secretary of State Marco Rubio was briefed on the Israeli threat intelligence as well as the subterfuge planned by the Secret Service and nonetheless opted to board the Legacy Air Force One, which presumably would have been a target for Iran. Another U.S. official familiar with the security discussions also questioned the seriousness of the threat, noting that tens of thousands of Turkish security personnel were incorporated into the NATO summit. Democrats have pushed the administration to provide more clarity on the extraordinary deception operation. Chris Van Hollen quoted here, I'm very curious about the extent to which the Israeli-provided intelligence was not only credible, but independently verifiable. I have no doubt that Iran would like to see the president gone, but this all seems a little fantastical. All right, so a new wrinkle in that story, and just to keep up with things, because I guess it's just going to persist as a story, I am glad to have added that to the mix. Let's see, other things that I think are important I got to do a little bit of scrolling here in order to get where we're going. Okay. Here's news. Let's see. I think I have two different reports on this. If I have it correct, I got a CNN and a Guardian piece. I think the CNN might have been just sort of a shorter blurb. I'm going to go with the Guardian on this one. It looks like it might be a little more thorough. And this will take us over to the DOJ world and persecution/prosecution of Trump adversaries and enemies. The Trump DOJ, Trump's Justice Department in the headline, arrests expert on far right as part of the SPLC crackdown. That is to say, the trumped up, no pun intended, for label for that one. The Southern Poverty Law Center being probed and persecuted by Trump's DOJ and others. Prosecutors now charging Heidi Beirich, it's Beirich, and unfortunately I don't think I have heard the name pronounced, so, prominent person, but we haven't talked about her before. Prosecutors charge Heidi Beirich with financial crimes, so another one of those solid accusations coming out of the Bill Pulte type shop, I guess. Financial crimes as part of the case against the Southern Poverty Law Center, which really ought not to be a case. Sam Levine is a reporter for The Guardian. Here's the rundown. The Justice Department on Wednesday arrested a leading expert on far-right extremism, charging her with financial crimes as part of the government's ongoing case against the Southern Poverty Law Center. Federal prosecutors charged Heidi Beirich, who formerly served as the group's chief financial officer, with conspiracy to commit wire fraud, also conspiracy to submit false statements to a federally insured bank, and conspiracy to commit concealment money laundering. All these things, of course, grow out of the conspiracy theory that the DOJ is using to pursue the SPLC, their theory being that because the SPLC sometimes utilized paid informants to get inside and to give them inside information about extremist and hate groups, that itself means, that means they were raising money allegedly to fight against hate groups, but instead using them to fund hate groups. No, they weren't using them to fund hate groups. They were using them to buy inside information to take down, from informants, to take down these groups. But, they're just dead set on turning everything on its head and charging that, A, that's the case, and B, that if it is the case, then that makes it wire fraud for you to have raised this money in the first place. It's a bizarre, upside down, backwards, inside out theory, and now they've got somebody in the dock facing charges on it personally, not just threatening the organizational structure of the SPLC. It should surprise no one that they've gone this far, given that they're still trying to charge someone for the vandalism that didn't take place at the reflecting pool. The Justice Department charged the SPLC in April, the organization, over a now-ended program in which it paid informants to infiltrate white supremacist groups. The government said the civil rights organization committed financial crimes by laundering money through bank accounts set up on behalf of fictitious entities to protect the identities of their informants. In other words, I remember the detailed reporting on this from a few weeks ago, which was when they had informants inside these groups, and an abundance of caution and to prevent their cover from being blown by, say, having checks around in their house from the SPLC, they instead set up shell companies and paid them through those, so that the money for their inside information and tips wasn't identified as coming from SPLC. It's actually, good, I guess, spycraft, if you will, in order to do that. And, of course, part of a huge hypocrisy on the part of the Trumpy weirdos running the DOJ these days. They do this themselves. Of course, Trump operates 15,000 different shell companies, and several of them apparently had their accounts closed at Capital One for money laundering. So once again, every Republican accusation is a confession. But for some reason, this never stops them. All right. So where will we leave off on this one? Right. The money laundering is the accusation. The government says the SPLC deceived donors into thinking they were combating extremism when, in fact, they were really combating extremism. The government, though, says they were actually supporting it, which is absurd. The organization has strongly denied the accusation and says charges are politically motivated. And who would ever believe that the Trump administration would bring politically motivated charges? Experts have raised questions about the charges. The indictment alleges that Byrick, for her part, was in a romantic relationship with one of the informants, and that $140,000 of donor money made its way into a joint bank account they had. Byrick now is the chief strategy officer and co-founder of the Global Project Against Hate and Extremism, and is often sought out as an expert on far-right groups. She submitted testimony to the House committee that investigated the January 6th attack, and that's why they're mad. This all about the extremism of the Proud Boys. Gee whiz. Hi, it's me, David. I mostly do the commercials around here, too. Have you ever thought you'd like to do a show like this one, but a lot shorter? Maybe without necessarily waking up early each day, or even, let's say, working at it each day? Well, now you can, sort of, and by now, I mean pretty much any time you want, because what I'm talking about is you recording a news story, sharing an essay, or otherwise contributing your thoughts on these crazy times with the rest of us, and with any digital recording device. Make the show your own, as I like to say. Send me a digital file of your recording, a link to any source material, and a note about how you'd like to be identified on the air at KagroX, that's KAGROX, at gmail.com, and I'll take it from there. Don't worry about those ums and ahs either. I sure don't, but I'll even do my best to edit your submission down into a nice-sounding dispatch from the field. So come on, everybody, make the show your own. Help me prove once and for all that I'm not just imagining this audience. All right, welcome back, everyone, to the Kagro in the Morning Show here on Netroots Radio. Let's continue with reading the Guardian article about the arrest of, what's her first name? Heidi Byrick, whose name I hope I'm pronouncing correctly, on what appear to be, again, pardon the expression, trumped-up charges that growing out of the upside-down, backwards, through the looking glass investigation of the Southern Poverty Law Center on the theory of Trump's DOJ, that they are, in fact, not anti-extremist, but pro-extremist. Okay, sure, why not? Although, I guess you could hold that up in light of another story circulating. I don't want to get too distracted here, but the American Prospect was reporting just the other day, and I've heard this story before, that out in, which state are we talking about here? Utah. An anti-sex trafficking nonprofit in Utah, or I guess an allegedly anti-sex trafficking nonprofit in Utah, whose founder resigned after multiple women accused him of trafficking and sexual abuse. And what's the upshot of that? Well, of course, out in Utah, an anti-sex trafficking nonprofit will be run by Republicans. So the accusations that the anti-sex trafficking nonprofit, in fact, is A, for-profit, and B, trafficking and sexually abusing people, but it's run by a Republican, and so therefore will win a federal contract to provide legal services to unaccompanied immigrant children in government custody. Just exactly who the Republicans, MAGA, QAnon, etc., are allegedly so concerned not fall prey, the children, that is, to sex trafficking. But what better cover could there be for sex trafficking than being the head of an anti-sex trafficking nonprofit? Well, I guess once you come to believe that, I suppose it's possible if you're an alien from another planet to then believe, oh, well, maybe the Southern Poverty Law Center is actually an illegal center in favor of Southern poverty or something like that. And here you can, I guess, get to the conclusion, if you're willing to, entertain these kinds of theories, that, sure, they say they're a civil rights group, but aren't they, in fact, anti-civil rights? Well, not if you actually meet them. On the other hand, if you actually meet the head of this anti-sex trafficking nonprofit in Utah, you'll find very quickly that he is a sex pest and trafficker. Well, I mean, if that's everybody's experience, and you don't have to construct an elaborate financial web to pretend that that's the case, but instead just spend time with him and find out he's a sex creep, well, I guess it just becomes easier to believe. Anyway, also par for the course about what's going on inside of Trump's DOJ writ large, and there's news about that too, but we'll see if we can get to it afterwards. First up, let's continue with the Guardian article about the SPLC situation. All right, and we had just read that Heidi Beirich now is the Chief Strategy Officer and co-founder of the Global Project Against Hate and Extremism, and I guess the theory runs, oh, that's pro-hate and extremism. She submitted testimony, though, this is her major crime, I suppose, submitted testimony to the House committee that investigated the January 6th attack on the U.S. Capitol about the extremism of the Proud Boys. And as you know, it is their plan in the Trump administration to investigate the investigators and charge as many of the people who charged January 6ers with crimes with made-up crimes of their own. Aha, see, both sides do it. Or really what they're saying is only one side does it, the Democrats, and all of the charges that they leveled against people who sacked the Capitol on January 6th are in fact not true. It was all made up. It was a day of love, and they deserve to be in jail instead. Now, back to the article. A free and fair society does not use the justice system to silence its political opponents. Heidi Beirich has dedicated her life to fighting hate groups and extremist movements like the KKK, neo-Nazis, and other white supremacists. Her lawyer, Michael Proctor, said in a statement, she has combated these hateful, ugly, and un-American extremists and their repeated uses of violence and intimidation in order to promote a fairer, safer, and more just America. Her decades-long record of success dismantling hate groups and the resulting threats to her life speak volumes. For this, she's been indicted. Without ruling on the merits of the case, a federal judge in Alabama allowed the case to proceed last week, rejecting an argument from the SPLC that the case should have been dismissed because it was a vindictive prosecution. We'll see whether that holds any more water as the case goes on, but I just wanted to sort of make mention of the fact that now we've got an actual individual who used to work for SPLC in personal jeopardy and on trial for, well, what appear to be, from our perspective, made-up crimes that just happen to follow the same pattern. Oh, everything's a financial crime. It's always fraud that they're doing, and it's financial fraud. And these charges stemming from a group that, made their bones on financial fraud through and through. It's a little difficult to believe. But like I said, maybe from an alien perspective, you would be able to come to this conclusion. Well, if it happens on the Republican side, it must also happen on the Democratic side. This is the story from the American Prospect. Disgraced anti-sex trafficking NGO gets $244 million to represent migrant kids. The founder and CEO of Our Rescue resigned in 2023 amid allegations that he had sexually abused and trafficked women himself. Well, that doesn't seem to bother the Trump administration, of course. They are great fans of Andrew Tate and helped spring him from custody in Romania on sex trafficking, rape, and porn production charges, and allow him back into the United States. In fact, roll out the red carpet for him and have Trump's son hang out with him. It's a little weird. This story reported by Whitney Curry Wimbish, an August 11th piece. Let's see what we got here. An anti-sex trafficking nonprofit in Utah whose founder resigned after multiple women accused him of trafficking and sexual abuse has now won a federal contract to provide legal services to unaccompanied immigrant children in government custody. And since no one's tracking them, easy targets. The Trump administration gave Our Rescue a no-bid $244,034,658 contract. How many cents? We don't know. On August 7th, according to federal award notices, post late Friday night, the deal floods the organization with 7 times the amount of money that it had in 2025, according to its most recently available Form 990, which put total assets at $36.9 million. It's unclear how many children Our Rescue will represent. The notice says only that it will provide legal services to children in the care of the Office of Refugee Resettlement, or ORR, established to offer support for victims of human trafficking and those seeking asylum in the United States. Nearly 1,800 children were in the agency's care in June. Over the last year, it's averaged about 1,908 children monthly. The Trafficking Victims Protection Reauthorization Act of 2008 requires that the federal government, quote, shall ensure to the greatest extent practicable that all unaccompanied minors receive legal counsel to represent them in legal proceedings, and that it will protect them from mistreatment, exploitation, and trafficking. Our Rescue and a small Texas law firm founded by a former Trump appointee, are taking up that work after the Trump administration failed to pay and then canceled the contract of a legal aid group previously providing the services. So someone who was legitimately doing it because they actually cared, cancel that contract and give it to a Trump-aligned group. That's happening everywhere, of course. Our Rescue, formerly known as Operation Underground Railroad, or OUR, Operation Underground Railroad, now Our Rescue, did not respond to repeated emails and phone calls for more information, including when it expects to begin work or how many children it will represent. Our Rescue conducts international sting operations to catch sex traffickers. Oh, boy. Similar to Dateline's To Catch a Predator. That's an interesting way of putting it. The organization gained national notoriety in 2023 when the film Sound of Freedom dramatized the life of founder and CEO Tim Ballard, portraying him as a Homeland Security Investigations agent sent to rescue child sex trafficking victims in Colombia. Shortly after its release on July 4th, USA, multiple former employers came forward to accuse Ballard himself of sexual assault and trafficking, including during sting operations. What a great cover. Who would believe that in my anti-sex trafficking stings, I'm actually sex trafficking? According to the women, Ballard would use a couple's ruse during stings, coercing them into acting as his romantic partner so that traffickers wouldn't suspect him. They said he would assault them while demanding they remain in character and play their part as one half of a, quote, kinky couple. Eee, gross. Later revelations included that the Department of Homeland Security would not verify Ballard's claim that he had worked there. Oh. That members of law enforcement saw his sting operations as stunts to lure donations, and that some operations resulted in more harm to victims. According to a report last year in The Appeal, those instances included an orphanage in Haiti, oh, poor Haiti, where Our Rescue, sent children it purportedly rescued, and at which those children were raped and subjected to forced abortions. Like, it can't get any worse. The year he resigned, Form 990 documents show that Ballard was drawing a $566,993 salary from the nonprofit. I don't know why people don't use round numbers for these things. But $567,000, that's not particularly round, but it's a little rounder. Too much. My goodness. It's amazing what people pay themselves out of their nonprofits. Today, the CEO is one Derek Benner, who is drawing a salary of, considerably less, only $413,387, saying in his most recent letter to donors that he, quote, owes those we serve to remain lean. Wow. Benner came to the organization with a background in conducting sting operations of a different kind. I don't know which kind. Maybe they'll figure. Oh, is this it? Here we are. Okay, I thought this was the end of the article. Benner spent a decade at the Department of Homeland Security, including as Executive Associate Director of Homeland Security Investigations, and before that, the Deputy Executive Associate Director. Not a $400,000 job, by the way. During his tenure, the agency set up a fake university in Michigan to lure foreign nationals who wanted to extend the length of time they could stay in the country by obtaining student visas. Officials named the school University of Farmington after the office space it used in Farmington Hills. Operation Paper Chase resulted in the arrests of 250 students in early 2019, most of whom left the U.S. voluntarily. That winter, Senator Kamala Harris said on social media that the sting isn't just cruel, it's a waste of taxpayer dollars. Officials must be held accountable for this. Benner, meanwhile, published a letter in the Detroit Free Press and on the Immigration and Customs Enforcement website saying that students knew Farmington had no classes and no teachers, and so shouldn't have enrolled if they didn't want to break the law. Farmington is a clear example of a pay-to-stay scheme, which is against the law and not only creates a dangerous lack of accountability, but it also diminishes the quality and integrity of the U.S. student visa system, he said of the fake school his organization created. Meanwhile, though, of course, they're now going on to arrest and deport students of real universities who really are doing the thing they were supposed to be doing all along, but are foreign. According to the most recent Our Rescue Annual Report, the group in 2024 worked with 228 law enforcement agencies and conducted operations in 27 countries and in all 50 states. It ran 195 rescue missions and assisted 1,969 global arrests. Its deal to provide legal services follows the administration's award of a no-bid $150 million contract to the small Texas law firm Burke Law Group to perform the same work. The law firm has just 24 attorneys, only 2 of whom have expertise in immigration and asylum cases. The practice's co-founder, Marcella Burke, was a Trump appointee at the Department of the Interior and the Environmental Protection Agency, but at least they are lawyers. Like these guys, I don't understand how they're going to represent these people in court if they have no legal experts, no lawyers on their payroll. The hundreds of millions spent on Our Rescue and Burke Law Group comes after the Trump administration allowed the contract with the Acacia Center for Justice to expire after falling prey. Well, it looks like that. But after failing to pay the organization for more than half a year. So they tried to make them quit, I guess, by stopping their money. And I don't know. I guess they were just dedicated to the job. Acacia subcontracts with nearly 100 legal aid organizations across the country to provide children with legal services. The ORR stopped paying Acacia in November after lawyers refused to hand over confidential information about their underage clients. The decision jeopardized the legal aid of about 26,000 children. U.S. District Judge Araceli Martinez Olguin, ordered the Trump administration on August 6th to pay the $65 million it owes the nonprofits by the following day at noon Pacific time. I guess that didn't happen. Though that did not change the termination of the contract, it got the aid organizations already representing undocumented children the money due them for services rendered. Are they saying they paid it or just that they were ordered? Because they're two separate things. As The Prospect has reported, Trump and his advisor Stephen Miller are taking particular aim at children as part of their ethnic cleansing campaign, rushing them through the legal process and abusing their rights in detention. In multiple immigration courtrooms this summer, The Prospect has witnessed children too young to understand the gravity of the proceedings, such as a toddler with pigtails who had no guardian with her and who played in her chair as her pro bono lawyer spoke to the judge and then held his hand when they walked out. Martinez Olguin also noted that the Trump administration had failed to persuade her that it had a plan to represent vulnerable children by executing new agreements for the legal services at the heart of the lawsuit. For example, describing 2 agreements recently reached for a seeming fraction of the legal services to be provided across the country. She ordered the administration to file a report detailing their current and ongoing compliance with her order. Okay. So, a little weird that $244 million goes to anybody connected with credible accusations of sexual abuse and sex trafficking to take care of and protect the legal rights of unaccompanied minor children in particular. Seems like a bad fit. But lots of questionable contracting going around, of course, and lots of questionable activity over at the Justice Department. I guess a quick hit somewhere in here about the steering of old existing contracts to Trump supporters instead. I think I saw this first, well, let's see, how long ago was it? But on Blue Sky, in sort of a random post I encountered, this one from Ambassador, retired, Ken Fairfax, former U.S. ambassador, I guess in several postings around the world, National Security Council director for Russia, Ukraine, and Eurasia, like serious guy. Ken Fairfax, just noting tales of everyday corruption. The long story short on this one, and there's a whole article that goes with it. Tales of everyday corruption. Pete Hegseth canceled the $400,000 contract for making uniforms for the Blue Angels, the stunt flyers in the Air Force, or are they no, the Air Force is the Thunderbirds, but these are the Navy pilots, the Blue Angels, canceled the $400,000 contract for their uniforms on the grounds that the contract with a little operation called the Sewing Box, well, that's bad. It's DEI, since the firm is black-owned, and instead he awarded the contract to a Trump donor who owns a company elsewhere for nearly $1.7 million, a 325% price increase. Isn't that fantastic? As it happens, the article that explains the situation, or the one I grabbed from military.com, tells us that the Sewing Box is a local operation, local to the base where the Blue Angels operate from, and so it makes a little bit more sense. Pensacola, Florida, and I guess if you're a Blue Angel, you're based there, and so if you need to go get a uniform, get a new uniform, whatever, you just join the team, you need a second uniform, you need a repair, you go to the local place there in Pensacola, Florida, and it all makes sense. Now the contract is 325% more expensive and is in the hands of Aquila, Aquila, International LLC of Dulles, Virginia. It's nice to have the money coming into Virginia, but what does that do for you if you're based in Pensacola and you need a new uniform? I guess you got a plane available to you. Fly to Washington, D.C. and get your uniform there. Super. But yes, as it happens, lands in the hands of a major Trump donor. And golly gee, not only do you get the contract, but you get to write it up at 325% greater value. I won't read the whole article, but I will point you to it just so you can read up the details on it. And that gives us some time to switch over to another story and try to connect it with the others. And there are an awful lot. I got to warn you to keep your eye on another story that we're probably not going to have time for, but which has been developing over the last couple of days, and I guess pretty soon we'll be hearing more about it. Kash Patel has a trip planned to Russia and is kind of like openly saying he's going to go there to cooperate on intelligence sharing, which is, maybe bad news for the guy who's supposed to be more or less in charge of counterintelligence operations to keep an eye on what the Russians are doing. Instead, taking direction from them in weird ways, and I guess the suspicion is part and parcel of the upcoming efforts to manipulate the outcome, interpretation, and conduct of the midterm elections. And more on that still floating about out there. Maybe what I'll do, maybe we can head in that direction, which is not where I plan to go, but maybe tomorrow would be a better day to look over this extensive report from where? Let me see if I can find the thing. From, there it is. Zach Everson and Public Citizen on their investigation into the very odd, let's say, individuals heading up the Civil Rights Division over at the DOJ, which I guess makes sense and is of a piece with the idea that you should be prosecuting civil rights advocates and civil rights groups for financial crimes that you have essentially invented, rather than actually enforcing civil rights law in this country. But I guess once you learn how far out of their way they're going in the Civil Rights Division under Harmeet Dillon to overturn that mission and to turn the idea of civil rights and civil rights enforcement on its head and undo all the work of the past, it begins to make a little bit more sense. I don't know. Maybe that's it. Maybe that is the way we should go, and just give you a taste of what's going on there. And tomorrow we can head back to the weird thing that I wanted to tell you about that Cleta Mitchell was up to. And as long as we get it in before the weekend, I think we'll be in pretty good shape. Let me sort of try and long story short it here by borrowing from Zach Everson's Blue Sky posts on the subject. But Zach, I think, is chiefly responsible for the publication of the long-form article version of it over at the Public Citizen under the headline, Civil Wrongs, get it? Meet the attorneys Harmeet Dillon installed to turn the Civil Rights Division against its mission. And, another one of those inside-out, upside-down jobs over at DOJ that makes their plot to prosecute Heidi Beirich that much more suspicious. But here's the posts at Blue Sky, the thread at Blue Sky that I think more or less long story shorts this whole thing. New Harmeet Dillon swore in 100 plus new Civil Rights Division lawyers as, quote, civil rights warriors for all Americans, then named exactly none of them. So we did it. Court filings let us ID 11 of them. At least 5 arrived with records of misconduct, controversy, or hiring irregularities. And that'll usually get you right back out of the candidate pool over at DOJ. But yes, linking to the article, Meet the attorneys Harmeet Dillon installed to turn the Civil Rights Division against its mission. First up, meet Daniel Flickinger. In 2020, Flickinger was forced to resign from an Alabama law firm over a Facebook post mocking George Floyd's murder as, quote, purely hypothetical. He now helps run the DOJ office that polices civil rights compliance on college campuses. Obviously shouldn't be anywhere near it. Screenshot, by the way, of the post in question, I guess from a legal proceeding or legal pleading somewhere, this stipulation of fact. It is undisputed that in June 2020, Flickinger posted the following message on his personal Facebook page, apparently regarding the death of George Floyd. The quote, "Things I think about. If I were a 7-time felon with my most recent prison stint stemming from robbing and holding a pregnant woman at gunpoint in her home, would I choose to die in a fentanyl and methamphetamine-numbed strangulation if it meant being worshipped in a nationwide funeral and my family receiving millions of dollars? Purely hypothetical." Wow, that is a bitter, bitter person. Yikes. What about Eric Neff at the, is it the L.A., like Los Angeles, or Louisiana, L.A.? I don't know. DA's office, a True the Vote conspiracy theory led him, Neff, to prosecute an election software CEO. Well, as you might imagine, the charges were dropped. He was placed on leave. L.A., I guess Louisiana in this case, paid $5 million to settle the wrongful prosecution. He's now chief of the DOJ's voting section. That doesn't sound good at all. Wow. Okay. And bad news on that front. What about Greta Giesecke? I don't know. Gieseke. Greta is her first name. She was hired as a career trial attorney with 11 months, a grand total of 11 months of experience, non-clerkship experience, by the way, which is where the elite prospects tend to go. Then, despite division policy, she was detailed straight to Harmeet Dillon's office. So brand new attorney and absolutely going to send her right to the head of the Civil Rights Division. Now she's Council on the Affirmative Action and California redistricting suits. There's also Barry Arrington they'd like you to meet. He represented Sidney Crackpot Powell, in a defamation suit over her election lies. He represented a school that refused to let the valedictorian come out in his graduation speech. He now runs the new Second Amendment section. There never was a Second Amendment section before. It didn't need a section. Every day is Children's Day, and every day is Second Amendment Day. Now there's a Second Amendment section in the Civil Rights Division charged with expanding gun rights. You just don't need it. I mean, all the federal government has to do to help expand gun rights is not try to enforce gun regulation elsewhere, or just get out of the way of Republican state gun policy. But all right, they have a whole mission statement, which you just won't believe if you spend the time trying to read that one. Let me get in a few more names here before we start to make our exit. Meet Jesus Osete, O-S-E-T-E. He is Dylan's top deputy. Per ProPublica, he attended meetings of lawyers that Trump tasked with reinvestigating his 2020 loss, which preceded the FBI's seizure of election records. I guess the seizure down in Georgia, right? Osete compared what Dylan's doing to the Civil Rights Division to stonemasons building a cathedral. And he has a roundabout, stupid-sounding way of doing it, but it is there for your perusal. Sadly, there's a bunch more examples in there, along with links to some excellent reporting. Please check it out. I encourage you to do the same. Zach, thanks you for doing the same. Again, the article there over at Public Citizen. Civil Wrongs. Meet the attorneys Harmeet Dillon installed to turn the Civil Rights Division against its mission. That makes some sense, I guess. That is to say, shows you why it's nonsense, and you understand more why they would be going along with the plan to prosecute someone like Heidi Beirich over at SPLC, when you come to realize that they've been purposefully selected for this purpose. And they're the sorts of crackpots with the upside down and backwards theories that usually are kept at the margins and rejected, but instead this time they are handed badges and impressive sounding titles and a mandate to enforce their crackpot theories as real law. At least as far as they're able to take it before the cases are dismissed.
In the morning with David Waldman.
All right, time now to hand things over to Justice Putnam for his West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. And tops of his list, Donald Trump and Natalie Harp getting sued together. Ooh, she'll like that. In a major federal lawsuit. What kind? A major one. Not only are they sneaking off onto other runaway planes together, but now they're involved in a lawsuit together. Let's find out what that's about next.